Happy New Year, Jimmy.
Happy New Year, Shadab. Good to be back on the podcast.
Can't believe this is 2026 and almost 2 years since we started the podcast. So great
Wow.
going so far.
Time is going fast.
Very fast. And then in this 2 years, AI has made a lot of progress, including now AI has started to create some trust issues that we will talk about, how people are starting to distrust a lot of things because of the AI.
And while we were away on break, there was definitely no shortage of news. So Meta is in talks to buy Manus, but now China is getting in the mix and reviewing the sale of Manus. We'll go through that as well.
Yeah, and New Year has started, but not so great news. The job prospects are getting a little bit tougher in 2026. We'll talk about what are the signals that is coming out in the job market.
So the Consumer Electronics Show out in Vegas actually was just this past week. A lot of interesting news always comes out of that, and Nvidia was one of the ones that came out with several new announcements, which we'll go through.
OpenAI launches ChatGPT for health and healthcare.
And last but not least, Gemini takes a chunk of business from ChatGPT in a new report.
That and more. Stay tuned for a quick introduction.
Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
Okay. So, Jamie, let's start with this news today. AI is creating lower trust among the people. That's the theme of the news. And let me give several examples of what has been reported in the last couple of weeks that, people are finding too many trust issues now related to AI. So here's the thing. Like, for example, French and Malaysian authorities are investigating Grok for generating sexualized deepfakes. And of course, as we know, these deepfakes have become so good that it's hard to really discern between the genuine one and the deepfakes. In the other news, India orders Musk's X platform to fix Grok over obscene AI content. So as you can see, there's a lot of international governmental involvement that is happening because of all these new kind of deepfakes and the AI content that's emerging, which is now really creating problems for the people, real people. There were also lots of, the news item that happened from Venezuela to Minneapolis, and then a lot of people have started taking those videos and images, trying to alter them, fabricate them. It's becoming really tough, with all so much content that is now there. As we know, we talked about this slop being generated. It's becoming really tough to understand which is a genuine, which is, really just a fake or the altered content. And that continues. Like, for example, in another news, DoorDash, it says it banned a driver who seemingly faked a delivery using AI. What that driver did was basically accepted the delivery and then created it actually found out that older image of the delivery to the same house, took that image, modified that, and put that as a proof that it has been delivered. Now, of course, it was caught, and then DoorDash said that we have banned this dasher for life. But that happened. And then in the other side of the same delivery issues, in India, Zomato, which is also another door delivery kind of service, very famous, they do kind of delivery in just 10 minutes. The Zomato CEO reveals that some of the customers are using AI to add fake insects and cake damages in the photos to claim refunds. They have seen an uptick in those kind of claims, and now they've started figuring out that people are actually misusing that. So, well, it just seems like in the spectrum, everybody's trying to, of course, there are always some of these nefarious, I would say, intent people who are trying to make use of AI in all kind of activities. As we know, the famous quotation, technology amplifies intentions, and that's what's becoming a problem.
So I'm chuckling a little bit. I know I shouldn't, but I give it up to ingenuity for putting ants or insects on cakes. But it is a serious issue. I mean, everything from deep fakes to how do companies know whether or not what a potential customer is actually providing is true or not, because you can alter images very easily these days with a myriad of any different tool like whether it's GPT Image One or Gwen or any of the other plethora of image editing tools that are out there, including Grok. So it is a serious issue for sure. And going back to one of the couple of the things that you said up front around Grok, I mean, it's one of these things where Grok is a little bit more lenient on things that it can create, and it puts more of the onus on the individual to self-govern themselves. But we all know from a society standpoint that some people cannot control themselves. Might be a good way of saying it. So, I think there is some responsibility certainly on a company like XAI or Grok and the things that are within their tools to manage, govern, police, whatever you want to call it. But then there is some onus on the individual as well. So I think there needs to be a balance in that. There certainly was some interesting things that I think even just today, XAI changed some parameters on what you could do with imaging if you're not a paid customer of some of their AI tooling. So it's not necessarily changing what they have, but maybe changing the total surface area of people that potentially in this case don't have a license to be able to do it or a subscription to it. So it'll be interesting to see how these governments may put pressure on companies like Grok or XAI. And what's also interesting too, in the back of my head, if you remember a couple months ago, Sam came out and said, things that are going to change potentially inside of ChatGPT to make it a little bit more, I don't want to say Grok-ish, but allow more adult-oriented content. Will this maybe alter that trajectory or timeline? Who knows? I would probably say that the OpenAI or ChatGPT governing or rules will probably be a little stricter than Grok, but still be interesting in and of itself.
I agree. I think the time will come, Jamie, where Grok users cohort will be certain set of people with intentions, because OpenAI and Anthropic, I'm thankful that they don't allow, like many times they've, like even if you try to create some character, like copyrighted character, etc., they don't allow, which is a good thing, right? I mean, you feel at least that, okay, you feel a little bit of safety concerning that, our kids are also using these kind of things. So, it's just terrible concern actually, for people that, this is becoming a problem because nobody can trust anymore what can be used, what is not real, what is genuine, and how that, and particularly for kids, like for example minors or women, this could become a huge problem. And here's the problem, Jamie, that like people like us, there is a good chance that we can take a look at an image and kind of figure out, yeah, this looks AI, right? Things like that. But vast majority of the people in the world today still cannot
Yeah,
um,
they can't
discern,
discern. Yeah,
and neither they have an idea about what the capability of AI is today, and they can easily be fooled, and that brings a lot of problems
yeah,
in the people's lives. So I just hope that they will. I think that one of the good thing is that, in fact, I've tried to use a Sora and some of these things for some of our content. It very clearly leaves a watermark which you cannot remove, and the watermark kind of keeps moving. It doesn't look as good, but I would say it's a good compromise to essentially make sure that people still know that this is a fabricated content,
yeah,
even though it's for educational purpose. For example, I made something like a map, and people moving from map, like from one country to another, to show that kind of a cultural exchange, um, and it still leaves a watermark. That's okay. It doesn't look as good, but it's not like something that it really hurts it. I would say that it still is a good compromise.
yeah. I would agree. And there are these things, like you said, the safeguards, the watermarks. There are embedded, quote unquote, items within images that are there, but the vast majority of people, like you said, they're just going to look at these things and just, oh my God, it's real, or
Yeah.
oh my God, did you see that? So on to another topic. So as I mentioned in the preview or teaser ton of topics, there were a couple of bigger announcements over the holiday break, and one of them was Meta's announcement that they were going to acquire Manus. So before I get into the real heart, what I'm going to talk about, just so everyone's aware, Manus is a company that started out in China, moved to Singapore, and what they do is they're actually an execution layer of AI. It's specifically focused around autonomous agents. So they have an environment, a system, if you will, that is there to help to plan and execute and complete multi-step tasks that are associated with agents, and they do that with minimal human interaction or supervision. So it's basically multi-agent processing without having them be autonomous. So this is something where a lot of, I'm going to call it, the foundational model companies are looking to bring in that technology, and Meta, I would say they're certainly a foundational company, but they're probably a little bit behind. Those companies like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. So this is a way for them to kind of jumpstart the things that they're doing with agents, coupled with Llama or whatever they come up with next in terms of the next version. So it makes sense. And Manus is one of those very quick startups that went from zero to like millions of dollars and real dollars in a short period of time. So a very reputable company in Manus. All right, so that's the backdrop. So why am I bringing this up in news, other than the fact that Meta is looking to acquire it? Well, China got involved. If you remember what I just said, this company started out in China, but then moved to Singapore, and part of that reason is they wanted to get out of the geopolitical boundary slash entanglement with the Chinese government, because, as you know, the Chinese government then takes ownership in some cases and a whole slew of things. So China is involved now because they're claiming anti-monopoly rules, even though both companies, obviously between Meta and Manus, are foreign. But it stems back into to the point that they're stating not only these anti-monopoly rulings, but some, I'll call it, red tape, that Manus didn't file all the right paperwork to move out of China into Singapore. So, I take a look at, you take a step back, and what does this really mean? Well, number one, it's geopolitical. So any of these different companies that are looking to acquire other businesses, it's not just a technology story. It's really a geopolitical. And we are seeing a lot of companies that are, starting up very quick and building some very interesting things coming out of China. So, does this stop with Manus? What other companies might be doing that? And this might be sort of this, I'll call it maybe an incubation pattern, where companies start in China, but then they move out of China because of the regulations that might be a factor. So if China is able to block this, this might stymie additional innovation and/or acquisitions in the future. Again, because I mentioned there is a lot of activity going on in China, especially for these smaller companies that are doing some agentic work or things that are similar. So that's the thing to kind of pay close attention to. We'll see where this goes. I have a feeling this is not going to stop this acquisition, and we'll see where it plays out.
Yeah, I think I would say I do expect some tussle using Manus as a battleground, actually, geopolitically. So it would be interesting to see how that works out. When you talk about the Manus, and here's the thing, right? I mean, Meta is on a different trajectory right now because they're trying to reboot, as you said, right? They kind of lost some of the ground. They were leader in the open source AI, and then now this guy Wong has been taken from Scale AI, and he and Yan LeCun, right, who was head of the AI at the Meta, have been having some trouble. So in the related news, we also learned that basically Yan LeCun has decided to depart Meta. He has founded his own company now, and he's pursuing now this advanced machine intelligence kind of research, because as for him, the LLMs are a dead end if you want to go to the super intelligence. So there has to be a different path, which is basically world models. So Yan LeCun, and Yan LeCun is a legend in the AI field. So he's out of the Meta. Basically, whatever we're seeing about this Manus and other development, it's all now the direction of Wang from Scale AI. Okay. In the other news, Jamie, let's talk about 2025. How did it end, and what is looking up in the 2026? So 2025 was unfortunately the worst year for hiring since 2020. December jobs report shows. Basically, it had the least amount of jobs, I think just about 50,000. And some of these figures actually generally get revised in a few months. So it may go up, it may go even down. But 2025 was overall a bad year. December was lower than expected number of jobs. Now, what we have to see how the 2026 will work out. Now, the thing is this, almost like one third of the companies have already said that they are having plans to reduce the workforce in 2026. So, not so great news there. In the other news, one of the Morgan Stanley analysis reported by Financial Times, it says that 200,000 European banking jobs would vanish by 2030 as the leaders lean into AI and stop doing some of those physical branches work, and that's almost like 10% of the workforce at 35 major banks within the Europe. And this is generally in the back office kind of operation, like risk management, compliance, and general banking back office. Um, so we will have to see how the new year turn out. Honestly, overall, what will happen to the employment and workforce? By some estimate, Jimmy, 10% of the jobs have already been automated at the global level, okay, with AI. This is another estimation that came out in a report. So time will tell, but I would say that if anybody listening out here has not really started learning the AI tools and skills, time to do so now. 2026 is the year. um, there are a lot of exciting things that are also happening, so take it in a mixed way, but beware of what kind of job you are, where it is heading. Okay, there are very clear indications out there.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I mean, we tout this all the time, and we've been stating and pointing to facts and figures that AI is certainly taking roles. But I think it boils down to this: the more you know about AI, the better off you're going to be as it relates to your employment capabilities going forward. I even say this. I mean, we deal with AI not only within this podcast but our day jobs. The most people are not attuned. I mean, you're listening to this video podcast right now, so you've got an edge on a lot of people. I would say,
Mhm.
way more than a majority of people aren't paying attention or aren't looking at AI. So, just for the mere fact that you're listening, you do have that edge up. But it's always stay current, stay on top of these things for sure. Speaking of staying on top of things, this is a great transition. I mentioned the CES. Consumer Electronic Show. So the keynote, or one of the keynotes, was by Nvidia. The Nvidia president was up on stage, and lo and behold, he announced the new GPU platform. I think way before anybody expected it to, and it's codenamed Rubin. So this is the Nvidia's, really touting this Rubin as the successor to Blackwell. Blackwell is not even like fully deployed in a lot of data centers yet. So there's still time, and this is just an announcement, so it's not out yet. But this is the next generation GPU. It incorporates new software design inside of the GPU for power consumption, or being able to do it in a meaningful way. It's really aligned at multimodal AI systems, which we're going to be using more and more of. So they also, NVIDIA at the same keynote highlighted other partnerships, making AI development more open, scalable, and really being able to be used by the enterprise environment. So this is all about like where NVIDIA is going next. Again, great company, not providing any financial advice on this, but NVIDIA is always pushing into the next envelope. And this is just another, key element that shows their technical prowess and their ability to really move forward. So we'll see, where this takes not only the company in Nvidia and what it might do in terms of its stock price, but where these foundational models or foundational companies and their models may take it, because this could usher in the next great set of capabilities. We still have a lot to see what Blackwell can do for training, and I think we mentioned probably a couple episodes ago. XAI is probably the one that's further along in terms of their data center build out with Blackwell. So we still have a long way to seeing what can be done with Blackwell, but this is ready, waiting in the wings once it gets deployed, or once it gets built to be used and deployed. I think this is going to help advance what our models can do even more, both from the training and the inference side.
Yeah, I mean, Nvidia is, of course, they are staying ahead of the curve when it comes to all those GPUs and the breakthroughs in the hardware. The other thing is, Jamie, they also announced about this Alpamayo, a new world model for like it's like a vision, language, world model, which basically helps um, they want the vehicle, to use these to basically enable the autonomous driving. So it's like a reasoning based model, 10 billion parameter, and it helps you break down these in complex tasks into steps and help, for example, how to navigate the traffic lights in a junction, things like that. And they want this to become kind of an Android for the autonomous vehicle. And of course, Nvidia has been trying this. Right? They have their own LLM as well. I think Nemotron, which wasn't very popular, honestly. And but they have been trying it, so they are not just trying to limit themselves to the hardware and the GPU. They want to get into the AI models space as well, and they have a bunch of things there. They have a series of world models called Cosmos. As part of this, they have now launched this Alpamayo-1. So time will tell whether this will be, because of course the Tesla has their own system, Waymo have their own, and these guys, they are coming out with something as a framework and a model that can be adopted by the other companies. So time will tell whether it will become popular or not, but that's what they also launched. Okay, great. Now let's move on to some of the launches, Jamie. Quickly, OpenAI has launched ChatGPT Health and OpenAI for healthcare. So ChatGPT for health. What is happening is that, as per the OpenAI's note, they say that they analyze de-identified data from all the user interactions and all these 260 million kind of users that they have been looking into. They found that bunch of them are related to the health. People have questions about the health. They want to know about the treatments, and they want to analyze their data, etc. And based on that, they are coming up with this something called ChatGPT for health. It is an AI assistant which is basically designed to support healthcare professionals, not replace the clinical judgment. It helps clinicians summarize kind of medical notes, draft the documentation, reduce administrative burden, etc. as well. So there are two systems here. Okay, one is the ChatGPT for health, which is basically anybody, for example, you and I, we have anybody who has, let's say, Pro or Plus or even free account, they can actually go and start using it. There's a wait list, so you have to sign it up. And then you can basically connect your own health data, okay, from Apple Health or MyFitnessPal or something like that. You can connect your medical records, and then you can have an interaction. You can ask the questions based on your own health. So this is more targeted towards the patients, right? Somebody who wants to have interaction with their own health data and understand. What it can do is, for example, you can say that, okay, my heart rate has been going up. Let's say your data shows that, and you're trying to figure out, because ChatGPT also has your non-health related history. It might also see that, oh, you actually moved, or you were having some work related stress or something like that, right? So it might try to give that correlation to you because of the access to the both the health as well as the non-health data. So that's one solution that people will find useful. Now, of course, it requires certain amount of privacy and security, because health data can be very personal. You want to be sure that, so they have created a system which will have basically separate memory, to maintain all the ChatGPT health related interaction and the history, etc. And it will be contained within that space. In terms of the, even though it is visible from your ChatGPT interface, you can see both the health and non-health related interaction, but it is health related queries are contained in a separate space that way. So it is kind of isolated. There are privacy and what the concern, one of the concern will still remain is about the HIPAA compliance. For example, will it still maintain that? There are a lot of criticism about, can it maintain that kind of confidentiality about the health records and things like that. Time will tell, but overall, it's not a bad idea, to be honest. Um, if I have my Apple Health data, and I will try to connect and see what I want to discover from this. If I can get additional insights, why not? So it could be useful.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think that that's the key thing here is that, number one, they have a whole bunch of disclaimers. It's not a doctor, all that kind of stuff. But it connects into the things that you may already be using, things like the Apple Health, or the MyFitnessPal, or other types of devices that record information. So it could couple like real data that is about you as well as your health records. Again, providing that you say yes, you want to connect that, but then it taps into the wealth and the knowledge that's there within the LLM. So I think it's a good step. Like you said already, there's certainly potential concerns. what is it going to do? It's not meant for clinical decisions. My fear is that some people may treat it as, oh, I went to the doctor, I asked, ChatGPT Health. Hopefully they don't do that. It's really, in my opinion, it's really meant for, what does this really mean? And do I need to go to the doctor, or should I be concerned about it? As long as it's looked at in that light, I think it'll be really good. And there are disclaimers that, like I mentioned before, that OpenAI puts out there. But there are a couple of key things that they say it's not going to be used, your data, to train the OpenAI model. So, from a HIPAA standpoint, I think that's going to be a strong emphasis for them, because it's not being used to train. So as long as you're using it and you're acknowledging connecting into your different data sources, I think it should align with HIPAA policies, but we'll let the experts in that regard weigh in there.
True, and there is another related product as well, which is basically OpenAI for healthcare, which is more targeted towards the industry professionals. So it's like providers and others who can actually use those. These are a bunch of solutions packaged in that, and where you can use that to create discharge summaries, to create the medical records, right? So that is to the provider base, basically the hospitals and healthcare professionals. They can actually use those kind of products. So OpenAI is basically targeting both, like one end kind of consumer patients, you can say, right, with ChatGPT Health, and the other is the OpenAI for healthcare, which is more towards the professionals and providers in that industry. So I would say good start. Let's see. There are a bunch of products. Even Microsoft has something called Dragon Copilot, which is basically equivalent of what I just described as a OpenAI for healthcare. And there are a bunch of other products as well. Epic has some products. There are many startups who have actually started launching the products for the healthcare industry. So it's just another one. It's nothing like a breakthrough. It's just another product that they have launched.
Yep. So speaking of another product that's launched, it's not necessarily a product, but actually an acquisition. So Microsoft recently just announced the acquisition of Osmos, OSMOS. It's a tool meant for data engineering, and it actually uses AI to do what was traditionally done through ETL. So this is an interesting acquisition because, number one, Osmos actually is a platform that works already with Fabric and OneLake, but it also works with Databricks and with Snowflake on different environments. So Microsoft has already come out and said that they're going to sunset those different platforms for those different tools, and its focus is going to be on Fabric. So what does this actually do? So if you've used Fabric before, Fabric is Microsoft's data platform tool. It's a SaaS, or software as a service offering, and it's got a lot of different functionality within it. One of those functionalities is to create a lakehouse or a data warehouse. And in order to get data into a lakehouse or a data warehouse, you need to do some connection into data, and you need to do some transformation. So what Osmos is meant to do is two things. One, it helps in understanding the data and correcting it, which is huge in terms of the time effort that you take to transform your data. And the other part of it is it'll help in actually doing transformations when you're going from source to target. Anyone who's tried to do anything within data knows that I'm not gonna say that database design is simple, but 70% of what typically goes into building a lakehouse or a data warehouse is spent on data transformation and the acquisition of data. So if you're able to automate the 70% of a task, well, that's going to be a big savings, not only in time, but then the ability to use that data for the things that you want to do with it, which is decision-making or reporting. So, the heart of Osmos is this ability to do the analysis of the existing data, or doing that ETL. And what's interesting about this is that a lot of times when you use an agent, quote unquote, an AI agent, it's sort of like you don't know how it did it, but you know what the outcome was. But with Osmos, what it actually builds, it uses AI and it looks at the data that's inside of Fabric, inside of OneLake. But what it creates is actually PySpark notebooks. So that notebook then is the resulting output from the set of agents that are performing its analysis and the interpretation of what it needs to do upon the data for transformation. So you can actually see the logic that comes out of it and then just run those notebooks. So that's a sort of a game changer as far as what this does. Now, Microsoft inside of notebooks previously had something called Data Wrangler, and there's some AI capabilities in that to automatically generate some code, but this goes way beyond just generating code. It's actually looking at your data, to discern and create the needed transformations that are required for your data. The other thing too, and I mentioned it very quickly, is it can actually clean your data. So once data is landed, you can actually point this Osmosis agent at your data and say, go validate the various different currencies that are within my sales figure and align that with any missing currency translations. And it'll do that automatically. So not only is it able to do transformations coming in, but it can clean your data afterwards. So that is, an interesting little acquisition. Manus was a big one. This is certainly interesting as well. And it's directly related to what Microsoft is doing inside of their flagship data tools, that being Fabric.
Perfect. And I think with that, we end our episode number 83.